Here we are with what they called or dubbed the Gypsy Hill killings. Now, as they wrote, there were a group of 5 homicides of young women and girls in San Mateo County, California during early 1976. They also dubbed this case the San Mateo Slasher. It was proven that there were at least 2 different perpetrators to this case, and to this day it remains unsolved. Now, in a little bit, there were also some other victims that they thought were linked to this case, but apparently they weren't necessarily, and there's some weird details to that as well, so let's get right into this. Alright, so they start off by saying on January 8th, 1976, the body of 18-year-old Veronica Castillo was discovered in a creek on the grounds of the Sharp Park Golf Course in Pacifica. I hope that's right. She had been stabbed 30 times. A transient was arrested but was released for lack of evidence. A few weeks later, 14-year-old Tatiana Blackwell was reported missing after leaving her home in the same area to run an errand. A body, later identified as hers, was discovered off Sharp Park Road in the Gypsy Hill section of the city on June 6th. She also had been stabbed multiple times. Paula Baxter, 17-year-old, went missing on February 2nd, leaving her marked car behind. Her nude body was found on February 4th in Millbrae behind the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Luteman Lane. She had been stabbed 4 times, sexually assaulted, and hit on the head with a piece of concrete. Her killing was forensically linked to Castillo's. On April 1st, 19-year-old Denise Lamb of Broadmoor was found dead after a search in the parking lot of the Sacramento Center. She had been stabbed 20 times. Carol Booth, 26, was reported missing by her husband on March 15th and was discovered in a shallow grave near Colma Creek on Grand Avenue in South San Francisco on May 6th. So those were the killings that they were able to at least figure out or discover. Maybe there are more, you never know, but so far these seems the one identified with this case. Now, there were 2 possible more victims where things get a little odd, at least with one of them, you'll hear in a bit, because it's about someone named Michelle Mitchell, and she was 19. She was last seen alive in Reno, Nevada on February 24th, 1976, when her Volkswagen Beetle broke down at the intersection of the 9th Street Evans Avenue. Witnesses reported seeing someone help push her vehicle into the parking lot across from the UNR Agriculture building on Evans Street. Her body was discovered that evening in a garage on the East 9th Street with her hands bound and her throat slashed. 3 years later, a person by the name Kathy Woods, a mental patient at the Louisiana State University Medical Center, confessed to having murdered a woman named Michelle. Now, Woods was charged and convicted of murdering Michelle Mitchell. Now, 35 years later, however, she was released from prison in 2015 after DNA evidence cleared her. Now, that's kind of bizarre. I guess since they point out it was a mental patient, this person was clearly not in the right mind to begin with. But it's so, if you really think about it, it's so bizarre. This person was technically locked up for 35 years for something they didn't even do. So perhaps they thought it was funny or interesting or cool in a way to say that they were the murderer of this person. Again, because of mental health issues, I don't know. It seems like it. What other reason could they have? Maybe they felt like I could give them some attention for some twisted reason, and they paid a heavy price for such an act. Now then we have Idol M Friedman, an employee of an import firm, who was found assaulted and stabbed to death with an 8-inch knife in her apartment at 116 Fairmount Street in San Francisco. She was murdered on March 17th, 1976, only 2 days later after Gypsy Hill victim Carol Lee Booth was reported missing. Her nude body was laying on the kitchen floor of a ransacked apartment. She was found by a co-worker who became concerned when she did not show up for work. Now, the investigation happened as followed. They have connected some of the homicides to each other. All the slain women were young brunettes and most had experienced car trouble prior to being murdered. All the bodies were found in wooded areas. A lack of witnesses and forensic evidence stalled the investigations. In March 2014, the FBI established a task force to re-examine the murders after new DNA evidence cast doubt on the conviction of Kathy Woods, now 64, or at least at the time. The DNA taken from a cigarette butt found at Mitchell's crime scene matched DNA taken from semen found at related crime scenes in San Mateo, California. This DNA was that of a man and therefore might exonerate Woods. On September 8, 2014, the FBI named Rodney Halbauer as a person of interest in the Gypsy Hills murders. Now, Woods was released from prison on September 11th, pending a new trial to take place on July 13th, 2015. In March of that year, prosecutors dismissed the charges against Woods. On January 22nd, 2015, Halbauer was charged with the two of the murders, Paula Baxter and Veronica Castillo. The DNA evidence linked him to both. On November 8, 2017, Leon Melvin Seymour was charged with the murder of Denise Lamp based on DNA evidence. On September 18, 2018, Halbauer was convicted of the murders of Castillo and Baxter. Finally, on October 10th of that year, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murder. Now, Kathy Woods is the longest ever wrongfully imprisoned woman in US history, records show. She was released from prison in 2015 when the fresh evidence linked the murders of these people to the suspected serial killer Rodney Halbauer. Now, Halbauer will most likely face a trial in Nevada for the murder of Michelle Mitchell in the near future. The murder of Tanya Blackwell and Carol Lee are both believed to have been committed by Rodney, but there was not enough evidence to charge him for their deaths. These serial killers, it's like a drug to them, man. Imagine taking that lovely shot of heroin into your arms because you're so addicted to it. And the next day you're like, I want it again. Well, that's exactly what these serial killers also feel whenever they think of taking somebody's life. So you know what? I'd say good riddance for him being off the street.